If you feel like you're distracted, just not focusing on your goals, not working as hard as you feel like you should be, then this video is for you. One of the biggest struggles a lot of people have nowadays is just being bombarded by a whole bunch of different distractions. It's way too easy to surround yourself with things that aren't going to give you purpose. Distractions are the main reasons people are fat, broke, and unmotivated. There is a lack of focus on what is actually important. So I'm going to give you some actionable steps that you can do if you want to lock in and get to work. It's not going to be the traditional distance yourself from social media, ignore everyone, or even lock yourself in your room. Sure, these things can work for some people, but that's not what we're going to talk about here. It really just depends on what you actually want to achieve. Like for me, since I'm trying to build a personal brand, I can't delete social media. I need to see what other people in my niche are doing. I need to post myself consistently. I need to interact with my followers and everything that comes along with building a personal brand. Social media for me has a role in achieving my goals. However, there's a time where social media can be distracting if you're not using it to your advantage. For example, if you're just scrolling on TikTok mindlessly for hours and hours, looking at memes or just random videos that don't give you any value, then that's when it becomes an issue. I bet most of you are spending like 2 to 3 hours a day on TikTok just because it gives your brain a dopamine hit. TikTok is literally frying your brain and giving you absolutely no value. And 2 to 3 hours a day really adds up, even if it's just 1 hour a day. So maybe for some of you, deleting social media is a good idea. It really just depends on how you use it. If you're not using it to your advantage, then yeah, I would delete it if I were you. If I wasn't trying to build a social media brand or a personal brand, I would delete it myself. Another thing you need to do is unfollow all the hoes on Instagram. The girls who post ass pics all day, just funneling you to their OnlyFans. I think watching porn in general is bad enough, but if you're willing to go out of your way and spend money on someone's OnlyFans, then you have a lot of work to do, my friend. But that's a whole topic for another day, so I'm not gonna get into that in too much detail. But this is a huge distraction for you, so unfollow all the hoes. I never purchased anyone's OnlyFans subscription, but I was definitely guilty of following a lot of Instagram models and hoes. And what this did was sort of put them on a pedestal, and it was a huge distraction. Sure, yeah, it's nice to look at and everything, but what purpose does that really serve you? So all in all, you probably don't need to delete social media as a whole, but definitely unfollow the people who aren't giving you value. And definitely all the hoes that just make you horny because you know it's just gonna give you temptation to either buy their OnlyFans or go watch porn. Like, you don't need to be following those types of people. Even for a lot of people, your favorite influencers as well. You should probably unfollow them. Unless they're giving you some sort of advice, value, inspiration, motivation, something like that that's gonna better you, then by all means keep following them and consuming their content. But you need to be able to decipher between what is good and bad when it comes to following people on Instagram or social media in general. I cut my following by more than half by doing this. And I noticed I spend way less time mindlessly scrolling on social media. The next thing you need to do is block out times in the day that you are gonna work. Put your phone on Do Not Disturb because you don't need to have messages and Snapchats come through when you're trying to work. Even if you put your phone on top of a dresser or something like that and you still hear it go off, it's still gonna trigger in your mind some curiosity. You're gonna wonder who is messaging you, what is it about? So just put it on Do Not Disturb, or even better yet, put it in a different room. Because when you get a text notification, it's gonna be your natural instinct to just go look at your phone. I used to be super bad about this. Every time I would hear my phone vibrate, and I would always be curious to see who was messaging me, or to see what it was about. Like, I would drop everything just to check my phone. And I know a lot of people are guilty of that. Even if I don't respond right then and there, it still disrupts my workflow. So even if I try not to check my phone, if I hear a notification go off, it's always gonna be in the back of my mind. So that's why it's better just to put your phone on Do Not Disturb and put it in another room, or just somewhere that's not in front of you. This is a huge distraction that you need to cut out. Another reason you wanna put it in another room is because if you get bored for a couple seconds, your first natural instinct is gonna be to pick up your phone and start looking on social media, checking your messages, checking your emails, or whatever. It's a habit for all of us, and really it's just been instilled in our brains for years and years that that's what we need to do when we get bored. That's why so many people just sit there on their phones all the time, because they're bored, and it can entertain you to an extent. Like, you do not need your phone close to you if you're trying to work, because it's gonna be a huge interruption. I touched on this briefly, but you need to have time blocks. Times where you go to the gym, you prep your meals, you work, respond to messages, things like that. The best way to do this is just build a solid, productive routine. That's what I did a few months ago, and it's been an absolute game changer. I only check my Snapchat, my text messages, only a couple times a day, unless it's from a client. Then I usually get right back to them as soon as I can. And sometimes I'll even check my phone in between sets of the gym, but I've been working out for so long that I don't let this interrupt my workout. I usually rest for about 1 to 3 minutes depending on what exercise I'm doing, which is usually the perfect amount of time to respond to someone. But I do have my absolute deepest work moments in the morning. After my coffee, after my breakfast, after I'm showered, after I did my normal morning routine, I find myself in the deepest workflow because I'm fresh and able to focus really well. Once my focus starts to wear off, which is usually around 4 to 5 hours, then I'll go to the gym as sort of a break. Then I'll work some more when I get home. I set up my schedule in a way where I don't have time to mindlessly scroll on social media, go out and party, do drugs, or just do things that aren't gonna get me closer to my goals. Sure, I can make time for those activities here and there. Right now, I'm in a season of grinding, so that's what my priority is. I'm so focused and committed to my process and my routine that I do not have the mental capacity for anything else. I'm not chasing girls, spending time on Tinder, drinking on the weekends, or doing anything that doesn't progress me as an individual or get me closer to my goals. And that's what it's gonna take for most of you. If you wanna achieve big things in life, then you are gonna have to make some long-term sacrifices. And the best way to do that is just build a solid routine that doesn't give you a whole lot of flexibility. And sure, you can still have some balance in your life, but never stray away from your process and your routine. The only way to ensure that this will actually work is if you stick with it and be strict on yourself. Like if you slack off once a week, eventually it's gonna lead to 2 times, eventually it's gonna lead to 3 times a week, 4 times a week, then eventually you'll just be off the rails. So plan out your days beforehand too, because if you wake up and you don't know what you're gonna do for that day, then how do you expect to have a productive day? You can't just wing it all the time and hope for the best. You need to have a structure. You don't wanna waste time thinking about what the next task is gonna be during the day. You wanna have that all planned out beforehand. When you don't have a plan, you're always just gonna resort to the easiest thing, which is gonna be pick up your phone and start scrolling on social media, picking up your phone, going on Tinder. But you do need to have some breaks scheduled in, otherwise you're just gonna get burnt out. One thing to note is that you don't wanna move on to the next task after it's complete, but rather when the time is up. Unless it's like preparing your meals, working out, or doing something that absolutely has to be done in that day. For example, let's say I need to edit a video or something. If I can't finish editing that video in the certain time block that I set for myself, then I'll just do it later, because I don't want to mess up the flow for the rest of my day. The last thing, and probably the most beneficial thing, is to learn how to optimize flow state. Basically when you're working, but you don't even feel like you're working. As an example, think about you like playing video games or something. When you're playing video games, you are so entrenched in the game that you don't even think to yourself that, oh, I am playing a video game. You are just so involved in it. It's like you forget that you're playing. And when you can apply this to working, and then it's really the best feeling in the world. I noticed that I find my flow state early in the mornings, when I'm scripting out videos or doing something on Instagram for my brand. I enjoy to write and create, so it doesn't take me a whole lot of time to get into flow state when I'm doing these tasks. However, there are still some tasks I'm not a huge fan of that I still just need to get done, and it does take me a little bit longer to get into flow state then. That's why I like to get these tasks done in the morning, when I'm the freshest. Feel fresh, alert, and sharp. And you only have so much brain power throughout the day, so you want to make sure you're using it on things that are actually going to benefit you. So get the important stuff done first. Another thing you need to consider is that you don't want to be interrupted during this time. If you have people living with you, then you just need to tell them that you need some time for yourself. A huge game changer for me was getting my own place. I noticed I can focus much easier and for much longer. People wouldn't like walk in on me a whole lot or like call my name a whole lot, but it was just the idea of hearing someone else in the house that really distracted me. This was the main reason I chose to live alone actually. Sure, it might get a little lonely at times, but the pros definitely outweigh the cons. Like if someone calls your name when you're in flow state or like knocks on your door or walks in on you, then that's gonna take your attention and interrupt your flow state, and then you're gonna have to get back into flow state after the interaction is complete. Obviously they didn't mean anything by it, but it's important to make sure you're not interrupted during this time. I remember when I was doing cold calls for solar for like 6 to 8 hours a day, and I would have one of my parents, call my name, walk in when I was in deep flow state, and it would just really interrupt me. And those of you that know sales knows that sales is all flow state. Like you can't be focused on other things when you're on an important sales call. You need to be fully involved with the call. So close out all tabs, put your phone on do not disturb, and tell others that you need a few hours to yourself. And that's how you master flow state and get into it as fast as possible. And another thing to take note of is that you want to focus on one thing at a time, because the second you open TikTok or start focusing on something else, your flow state is ruined. Not only will you produce the best results in flow state, but it'll feel effortless. So take the things I told you in this video and just lock in and grind for 6 months to a year. And I promise you'll be proud and surprised of what you had accomplished and who you've become. Like imagine what would happen if you just blocked out all the distractions and only focused on working on yourself or some sort of big goal for the next year. Like this can be applied to anything, business, fitness, self-improvement, or just anything that's gonna better your life. Distractions are ruining you, so you absolutely need to block them out if you really wanna achieve your goals.